Have you ever seen a family smile in public while quietly tearing each other apart in private? Have you ever felt a small, jealous thought grow so loud that it starts deciding your actions before you even notice? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight I want to tell you a story about jealousy that wears the face of love, about a household that thought its greatest danger came from outside, and about the kind of horror that begins the moment we stop watching our own mind. This is also a story about awakening, because awakening is not only about peaceful meditation rooms and soft music. Awakening is often about catching the exact second a harmful intention is born and choosing not to feed it. It is about seeing cause and effect while it is still small enough to change. It is about compassion that starts at home and wisdom that does not wait until life collapses. In the beginning, the neighborhood looked ordinary. A line of small houses, dogs that barked at the same hour every night, kids who ran barefoot in the afternoons, and adults who carried their tiredness like a second shirt. If you walked past Daisy's house, you would not think anything unusual lived there. The paint was a little faded, the gate squeaked, and the front window always held a curtain that moved as if someone was watching. Inside, Daisy lived with a family that tried very hard to act normal. There was the father who spoke loudly in the morning and softly at night, as if saving his real feelings for the dark. There was the mother who managed the home with a tight-jawed smile that arrived late. There was a younger sibling who learned early to stay quiet and observe. And then there was the stepchild, the one the neighbors called the other kid, the one everyone politely included but never fully claimed. No one said the word jealous out loud at first. Jealousy usually enters politely. It comes disguised as concern. It says, "I am just protecting my place." It says, "I am only asking for fairness." It says, "I only want what I deserve." The mind believes it, because the mind loves stories that make it the hero. Daisy was not born cruel. That matters. Most people do not wake up one day and decide to become the villain in their own life. They slide, they drift, they get pulled by untrained habits, they get hypnotized by comparisons. They get tired, and tiredness makes the mind hungry for shortcuts. Jealousy is one of those shortcuts. It promises a quick feeling of importance by lowering someone else. It promises a quick feeling of safety by controlling someone else. It promises a quick feeling of being chosen by making someone else look unworthy. Daisy had a reason she never admitted, not even to herself. When she was little, she once overheard a conversation that planted a seed. She heard her mother say to an aunt that the family would have been happier if things had been simpler. The aunt asked what she meant, and the mother, tired and irritated, said something like, "If it was only us, we could breathe. If it was only our child, we would not have to share what is already not enough." It was a sentence spoken in frustration, not a formal decision. But to a young mind, it sounded like a verdict. It sounded like love had a limited supply and someone was taking Daisy's portion away. That is how the mind begins to measure love in pieces. And once love becomes a measurement, jealousy becomes inevitable. The stepchild arrived with a quiet politeness that made adults praise them. They washed dishes without being asked. They helped the younger sibling with schoolwork. They spoke with a respectful tone that sounded mature. Teachers liked them. Neighbors commented, "What a good kid. Your family is lucky." Those words were meant as compliments, but in Daisy's mind, they landed like stones. Lucky, good, mature. Each word felt like a spotlight moving away from her. She began to interpret every praise as subtraction. The more the stepchild received, the less Daisy believed she would have. She started doing what jealous minds do. She watched, she counted, she collected evidence. She kept a private courtroom inside her head where every event was presented as proof that she was losing. If the stepchild got a new notebook, Daisy saw a conspiracy. If the stepchild got praised for chores, Daisy saw a betrayal. If the father smiled at the stepchild, Daisy felt a cold emptiness and told herself a story that she was being replaced. Jealousy is not only a feeling, it is a way of looking. It is a lens that turns neutral moments into threats. And because the lens is distorted, it produces distorted actions. This is where cause and effect begins, not in the sky, not in mystical punishment, but in the everyday mechanics of the mind. At first, Daisy tried to win attention in normal ways. She laughed louder. She performed in front of relatives. She volunteered for tasks she did not want, only to get praised. But the praise never stayed. It evaporated too fast. The jealous mind cannot hold satisfaction because it is built on fear. Even when it gets what it wants, it worries it will lose it again, so it wants more. Then it feels shame for wanting more. Then it hides the shame under anger. Then it explodes. One night Daisy was in the kitchen and she heard her mother gently remind the stepchild to rest, telling them they had done enough for the day. It was a normal, kind sentence, but Daisy heard it as proof that the stepchild was cherished. Her chest tightened. Her thoughts began racing, quick and cruel, like a swarm. A voice inside her whispered, "They get softness. You get orders. They get kindness. You get pressure. They are stealing your mother." Then another voice, quieter but sharper, said, "Make them look bad. If they look bad, you look good again." That second voice is the dangerous one. That is the moment we either wake up or fall asleep. Awakening is not something you achieve once and wear forever. It is a practice of catching that moment. Daisy did not catch it. She swallowed it. From that night onward, she began to sabotage in small ways. She hid the stepchild's things and watched them panic. She moved objects so they would look careless. She spilled water near their school papers. She told half-truths to adults, letting their imagination do the rest. She learned how to make innocence look suspicious without directly lying. Jealousy can be very intelligent when it wants to harm. The stepchild did not retaliate. That made Daisy even angrier. She wanted a fight because a fight would justify her hatred. But the stepchild responded with quiet confusion and continued trying to help. That kind of goodness can sometimes trigger a darker jealousy because it threatens the jealous person's self-story. If the other person is truly decent, then the jealous person has to face their own cruelty. The ego hates that. It would rather believe the other person is secretly evil. So Daisy started searching for a hidden flaw. She watched the stepchild as if they were an enemy spy. She listened to their breathing. She noticed their habits. She waited for a mistake. And because she waited, she found one. The stepchild had a small box hidden in their bag. Daisy saw it one afternoon when the bag fell over. It was nothing dramatic, just a worn container, taped at the corners. But jealousy does not need facts. It needs a symbol. Daisy's mind said, "They are hiding something. They must have stolen it. They must be planning something. They must think they are better than us." She waited until the stepchild left the room. Then she opened the box. Inside were simple things: a folded letter, a small bead bracelet, a tiny photo, faded at the edges, and a piece of cloth that smelled like old perfume. It was a grief box, a memory box, a box belonging to someone who had lost a mother or a home. There was no weapon, no stolen jewelry, no evidence of evil. only tenderness. For a second, Daisy felt something she did not expect. She felt a pinch of pity, a softening. The human part of her recognized pain. This was the doorway to compassion, but the jealous mind slammed the doorway shut. It said, "Do not fall for it. Their sadness is an act. If you pity them, you will lose." So she took the letter and read it. It was written in a simple handwriting, the kind that does not try to impress. It was a message from someone who missed them. It spoke about loneliness, about trying to be good, about hoping this new family would accept them, about praying not to be a burden. The letter ended with words that felt like a whisper. "I hope you find a place where you are loved without needing to prove you deserve it." Those words hit Daisy like a mirror, because Daisy had been trying to prove she deserved love too. The difference was that the stepchild responded to insecurity by becoming kinder, while Daisy responded by becoming sharper. Two destinies branching from the same fear. For a moment, Daisy wanted to put everything back and pretend she never saw it, but she also felt exposed. She felt like the stepchild's private pain was now a spotlight on her own hidden hunger. The mind that does not want to be seen will often choose a cruel action to regain control. That night, she did something that changed the tone of the house. She planted the memory box in a place where the adults would find it, and she arranged it so it would look like evidence of wrongdoing. She placed a missing household item near it, something small but noticeable. And then she told her mother, in a casual voice, that she thought the stepchild had been acting strange. The mother found the box. She opened it. She saw the letter, but she did not read it the way Daisy had read it. She read it through her own stress and suspicion. Adults do that sometimes. They are busy. They are tired. They see a child hiding something, and their minds jump to fear. The mother confronted the stepchild in front of the family. The father asked questions with a hard tone. The stepchild tried to explain, but their voice shook. The mother kept insisting, "Why are you hiding things? What did you take? What else are you hiding?" The stepchild's face turned pale. They tried to say the box was only memories, but the mother saw the household item and believed it was theft. The father's disappointment grew. The younger sibling looked confused and scared. Daisy watched, and she felt a sick kind of satisfaction. The jealous mind loves this feeling. It feels like power. It feels like restoring balance. But it is borrowed power. It is power that comes from making someone else smaller. And because it is borrowed, it always demands repayment with interest. That repayment is karma, not as a mystical curse, but as the inner consequences that begin to poison the heart. That was the first night the house felt different. After the confrontation, the stepchild cried quietly in their room. The mother, still angry, slammed doors. The father slept facing the wall. Daisy lay in bed, and instead of feeling relief, she felt an uneasy pressure in the air. The silence did not feel calm. It felt crowded. She told herself she had won, but her body did not believe it. Her stomach tightened. Her mind kept replaying the stepchild's face. The line from the letter echoed in her head. Loved without needing to prove you deserve it. Jealousy tries to keep the mind asleep, but guilt is a bell. Daisy felt the bell ringing, and she hated it, so she tried to cover it with more justification. She said to herself, "They deserve it. They are fake. They are stealing love. They are a threat." That is the pattern. When we commit a harmful act, we either wake up and stop, or we double down and create more harm to protect the story that we were right. Doubling down is the road to horror. The next day, strange things began. At first, it was small. A cold spot in the hallway that did not match the weather. A faint scent of old perfume near the stepchild's door. A sound like soft tapping at midnight, as if someone's fingernails were gently knocking on wood. The mother blamed rats. The father blamed plumbing. The younger sibling blamed wind. Daisy said nothing, but her skin pricked, because deep down she knew the house had absorbed something, not a ghost in the movie sense, but an emotional residue. Homes hold what people repeat. Homes soak up unspoken cruelty. Homes become witnesses. That night Daisy woke up to a whisper. She could not understand the words. It sounded like a voice trying to speak through water. She sat up, heart pounding. The room was dark. The curtain moved slightly though the window was closed. She tried to convince herself it was a dream, but then she heard it again, closer, right near her ear, as if someone was kneeling beside her bed. A slow breath, a small sob, then silence. Daisy froze. She did not scream. Fear held her throat. She turned on her lamp with shaking fingers. The room looked normal, but on her desk, where her school notebook lay, she saw something that was not there before. A bead bracelet. The stepchild's bracelet. The one from the memory box. Daisy stared at it. She felt heat rush to her face. She did not want to believe it was real. She jumped out of bed and ran to the stepchild's room. The door was slightly open. Inside, the stepchild was asleep, face wet as if they had been crying. Their wrist was bare. Daisy backed away. She returned to her room and stared at the bracelet again. Her mind began inventing explanations. Maybe the stepchild came in to scare her. Maybe they are playing games. Maybe it fell somewhere and someone moved it. But her body knew something else. The bracelet felt like a message, not a threat, a message. The next days became heavier. The mother grew more irritable. The father started having headaches. The younger sibling developed nightmares and began sleepwalking. The stepchild became quieter, shrinking into themselves like a candle struggling in wind. And Daisy began seeing things at the edge of her vision. A shadow near the kitchen doorway that vanished when she looked directly. A reflection in the window that did not match her posture. A wet footprint on the tile floor leading to the stepchild's room. Even though no one had stepped in water, she started losing sleep. She started snapping at everyone. Her jealousy, which had once felt like a secret weapon, now felt like a chain dragging her through each day. This is where the wisdom teaching begins to show itself. In Buddhism, there is a repeated reminder that suffering is fueled by ignorance, not ignorance as stupidity, but ignorance as not seeing clearly. When you do not see how your mind creates your world, you become a puppet to your own habits. Jealousy is one of the strongest puppeteer strings. Daisy's suffering now had layers. There was the original insecurity, the fear of losing love. There was the guilt from harming someone. There was the fear of consequences. There was the paranoia of being exposed. Each layer tightened her mind further. One afternoon, the stepchild sat alone on the porch. Daisy approached without planning to. She did not feel brave. She felt tired. The stepchild looked up with eyes that were red from crying, but their expression was not angry. It was exhausted and gentle, which somehow hurt more. Daisy wanted to say something sharp. That was her habit. Sharpness was her armor, but the words did not come. Instead, the stepchild spoke softly. They said, "I did not take anything. I do not want to fight you. I just want to belong." Belong. That word is so simple, but it carries a whole universe. Every harmful action Daisy had taken was, in some twisted way, also about belonging. She wanted to belong as the chosen one. She wanted to belong as the only child. She wanted to belong as the center. She believed belonging was a single chair, and only one person could sit. But belonging is not a chair. Belonging is a spacious room. The problem is not that love is small. The problem is that the mind is clinging. The stepchild continued, almost as if talking to themselves. They said, "My old home was not safe. I promised myself that if I ever got a second chance, I would be good. I would not cause trouble. I would not make people regret taking me in." Daisy felt her throat burn. The letter came back to her mind. Loved without needing to prove you deserve it. In that moment, Daisy had a choice. She could keep clinging to her jealous identity, or she could wake up and see the truth. The truth was that she had been fighting a phantom. The stepchild was not stealing love. Daisy's own fear was stealing peace. But awakening is not easy, because it requires admitting you were wrong, and the ego hates that. The ego would rather suffer than apologize. It would rather create new enemies than face its own emptiness. Daisy turned away without speaking. She went inside. Her heart hammered, and that night, the house became truly frightening. The mother woke up screaming that she saw a woman standing in the corner of the room, hair wet, face hidden, holding a piece of cloth. The father ran in, turned on the light, and saw nothing. The mother insisted she smelled perfume and heard crying. The next night, the father woke up to the sound of someone walking in the hallway. He opened the door and saw a trail of wet footprints again. He followed them to the stepchild's door, and when he opened it, the room was cold, too cold, and the stepchild was shivering in sleep. The younger sibling began talking in their sleep, whispering, "Please do not send me away. Please do not hate me. Please do not take my home." Those were not the younger siblings' usual words. Those were words that sounded like the stepchild's deepest fear, leaking into the air of the house like smoke. Daisy started to suspect that whatever was happening was not random. It felt connected to the memory box, to the perfume scent, to grief, to rejection. It felt like the house was amplifying a wound. In Buddhist language, you could say the household had created a field of suffering. When blame and suspicion and jealousy repeat, they create a mental environment that invites further disturbance. Whether you call it spiritual, psychological, or emotional, the effect is the same. The mind loses stability, the heart loses warmth, the home loses safety. Daisy finally did what she had avoided. She read the letter again. In her mind, without the jealous lens, she remembered the stepchild's wish to belong. And then she recognized something even more uncomfortable. The stepchild had been practicing compassion in a way Daisy had not. They had tried to ease the household, to contribute, to be gentle, even while being mistrusted. Daisy had repaid that with cruelty. The horror now was not a ghost. The horror was seeing herself clearly. There is a teaching that wisdom begins when you stop lying to yourself. Daisy could no longer lie. The fear in the house was too loud. The footsteps, the cold spots, the nightmares, the perfume, the whispering voice near her bed. All of it felt like a mirror held up to her intention. One night, unable to sleep, Daisy went to the kitchen and sat at the table. The house was silent, but not peaceful. The air felt thick. She put her head in her hands and, for the first time, she whispered an honest sentence. "I did this." As soon as she said it, she heard a sound. Not footsteps, not tapping. A soft exhale, like someone releasing a breath they had been holding a long time. Daisy lifted her head slowly. On the kitchen counter, near the sink, was the piece of cloth from the memory box. It was folded neatly. as if placed by careful hands. The perfume smell was stronger now, not overwhelming, but clear. Daisy's eyes filled with tears. She felt terror, but beneath it, she felt something else. A strange sadness, and a strange invitation. If the house could hold her jealousy, maybe it could also hold her repentance. If her actions had created fear, maybe new actions could create healing. That is the heart of cause and effect. It is not fatalism. It is responsibility. It is destiny as a living thing shaped by choices. The next morning, Daisy approached the stepchild while the adults were outside. Her hands shook. Her mouth felt dry. The stepchild looked up, wary but quiet. Daisy started with the hardest part. She said, "I opened your box. I moved it. I made it look like you stole things." The stepchild's face changed. They did not shout. They did not cry loudly. They simply stared, as if the world had tilted. Daisy continued, words rushing now, because once truth begins, it wants to be whole. She admitted the small sabotaged, the hidden items, the half-truths. She admitted she was jealous, terrified of being replaced, terrified of losing love. Then she said something that surprised even her. She said, "I am sorry. I do not know how to fix it, but I want to fix it." The stepchild looked down. Their shoulders trembled. Then they whispered, "Why?" Daisy answered honestly, "Because I was afraid, and because I did not know how to hold fear without turning it into anger." The stepchild took a slow breath, and then, very quietly, they said, "I was afraid too. I just tried to be good so no one would hate me." In that moment, the two children saw each other, not as enemies, but as two scared minds trying to survive. That is compassion. Compassion is not always soft and pretty. Sometimes compassion is the raw recognition that we share the same wound, even when we express it differently. But confession to the stepchild was not enough. Cause and effect required a full repair. Daisy had to face the adults. That night she gathered the family in the living room. The mother looked tired and annoyed. The father looked distant. The younger sibling clutched a pillow. The stepchild sat quietly, eyes down. Daisy spoke. She admitted what she did. She told the truth without excuses. Her mother's face tightened with shock. Her father's eyes widened. The room went silent. At first, the mother did what many adults do when confronted with their own mistake. She tried to protect her image. She said, "Why did you not tell us earlier?" She said, "This is unbelievable." She said, "We were only trying to protect the house." But then her voice cracked, because the truth was too clear. She had accused an innocent child. She had acted from fear. She had allowed suspicion to replace tenderness. The father looked at the stepchild and then looked away, shame spreading across his face. The younger sibling began crying, not because they understood every detail, but because the tension in the house finally had a name. The stepchild spoke softly. They said, "I did not want to cause problems. I just wanted to be part of the family." The mother's shoulders dropped. She began to cry, quietly at first, then openly. She walked over and hugged the stepchild, not as a dramatic movie scene, but as a human being who finally saw what she had done. The father joined, placing a hand on the stepchild's shoulder. The younger sibling hugged both children. Daisy stood there, trembling, feeling both relief and shame. This is also part of practice. Practice is not only meditation. Practice is having the courage to repair what you broke, even when it hurts your pride. That night, something changed in the house. The cold spot in the hallway faded. The perfume smell softened into a faint memory rather than an alarm. The footsteps did not return. The younger sibling slept without nightmares. The mother stopped waking up screaming. The father's headache ceased. You might call that supernatural. You might call it psychological. But either way, the lesson is the same. When the mind returns to honesty and compassion, suffering loosens its grip. When blame is replaced with accountability, the atmosphere becomes lighter. But the story does not end with one apology. Jealousy does not disappear because we confessed once. Jealousy is a habit, and habits require training. Daisy began practicing in small ways. When she felt the familiar sting of comparison, she named it silently, jealousy. When she felt the urge to sabotage, she paused and breathed. When she wanted attention, she asked for it directly instead of manipulating. When she felt afraid of losing love, she reminded herself that love is not a limited supply. She practiced seeing the stepchild as a person, not a rival. The stepchild also practiced. They practiced trusting again. They practiced not shrinking. They practiced sharing their feelings instead of swallowing them. They practiced receiving kindness without immediately fearing it would be taken away. The adults practiced too. The mother practiced listening before accusing. The father practiced being present instead of silent. The household learned that a family is not built by pretending everything is fine. It is built by meeting the truth together. This is where wisdom and karma become real. Karma is not a threat. It is a teacher. Daisy's actions created suffering, and she experienced that suffering, not because the universe hated her, but because the mind cannot plant thorns and expect flowers. But when she changed her intentions, the results changed too. Destiny shifted. In Buddhist practice, there is a principle that no matter how heavy the past, the next moment is still open. The mind can awaken. The heart can soften. The path can begin again. Daisy's story is proof of that. She did harm, and she repaired. She learned that compassion is not weakness. Compassion is the courage to stop feeding poison. I want to speak to you directly now, because stories like this are not only entertainment, they are mirrors. Maybe your jealousy does not look like Daisy's. Maybe you do not hide someone's things. Maybe you do not frame someone. But jealousy can be subtle. It can appear as coldness when a friend succeeds. It can appear as sarcasm when a sibling gets praised. It can appear as silent resentment when someone is loved the way you wish you were loved. And if we do not notice it early, it grows. It becomes a habit. It shapes our destiny. I have seen people ruin friendships because they could not celebrate someone else. I have seen classmates sabotage group projects because they feared being outshined. I have seen families carry invisible rivalries for years, passing bitterness from one generation to the next like an heirloom nobody wanted to inherit. The painful truth is that jealousy often hides a deeper wound, the belief that we are not enough. The belief that love must be earned by being better than someone else. The belief that if we are not chosen first, we are worthless. Wisdom says those beliefs are illusions. They are thoughts, not facts. They arise from causes and conditions, and they can be dissolved by seeing clearly. Compassion says we do not need to hate ourselves for having jealous thoughts. A thought is not a destiny. The problem is not that jealousy appears. The problem is when we feed it, obey it, and build a life around it. Practice means noticing the thought, breathing, and choosing a kinder action. If Daisy had practiced earlier, she could have saved the household a lot of fear. But her late awakening still mattered, because she chose repair. She chose honesty. She chose to face the pain rather than keep creating it. That is what I hope you take from this. You do not have to wait until your inner house becomes haunted by regret. You can wake up now. At the first hint of bitterness, you can pause now. At the first impulse to compare, you can choose compassion now, before harm becomes a pattern. And if you have already harmed someone, the path is still open. Apologize, repair, practice differently. Karma is not only consequences. Karma is also the power to plant new seeds. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If anything in it felt familiar, you are not alone. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever struggled with jealousy or been hurt by someone else's jealousy? And what helped you come back to clarity and compassion? If this kind of storytelling helps you reflect and grow, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment so we can keep building a community that chooses wisdom over ego and practice over impulse. Until next time, take care of your mind gently, because the mind you train today becomes the destiny you live tomorrow.